you were one of the ones that sent me an email. Why don't you start a discussion?
Okay, well, basically, my section emergency coordinator, in conjunction with a bunch of other section emergency coordinators, tested out the national traffic system to see how viable it would be.
Yeah.
We had to get critical messages through, and basically the test failed.
Yeah.
And he says that we can't rely completely on the national traffic system to send out messages. And that concerns me because I started out as a traffic handler when traffic handling was a little bit more popular. It seems to have gone away, and it seems to need to be fixed somehow. And I figured I would bring it up to the other section managers and the division directors who I know about this issue and see what their suggestions are to improve the reliability of traffic handling. And it's not just NTS messages, it's also IC 213 messages that we might be tasked to transmit in an emergency. And if we don't know how to do it, we'll look bad. So I'll throw it back to you, Dan, and we can have a discussion on that.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, we had a discussion actually about that today on the ODV reflector, and it came up. Mickey had some great comments on there. I'm gonna have a little anecdotal evidence of that. I had when I first won my director race in 2018 in November. Somebody up in Alaska, I'm not sure if I think it was somebody in Alaska, sent me a radiogram via NTS. I didn't get it until March. So and apparently it went in somebody's in basket and got buried, and it's like, oh gee, sorry about this, I just found it. And I got my first ever radiogram, saying, hey, congratulations on winning the Northwest Division director's chair, and say it took 3 months to get there, but better late than never, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But Mickey, do you want to talk about what the discussion that you had with Bud today about that? I know you guys got in a conversation, and I'm sure Mickey's going to have a lot more information on it than I do.
Well, Barry's in my division, and actually I live in Barry's section, so he knows what's going on. Basically, Bud did defend the national traffic system. I guess he's been a part of it many years. I'm not really a fan myself. I think we need, it is, last time I checked the calendar, it's 2020. We need a way to send messages to know if they arrived, when they arrived, and if they didn't arrive, where they stopped, and they need to be restarted where they stopped. I mean, everybody has a computer for that. Now, that said, if there is an electromagnetic pulse, which only the radios that are on Barry's right shoulder would actually work, then we won't have computers. So there has to be some basic manual message handling capability somewhere, somehow. So, but I don't think this is tolerable in the current form. I think that we have to look at things like WinLink and Packet and things that have a way to automatically store and forward messages. It's, so I've done a lot of work for DoD. Some of you guys that know me know that I've done a lot of real high-level continuity of operations type stuff for the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense stopped formatted messages in the 90s. The current message format is encrypted, but it is basically an automatic form that's filled out for you, and you just determine what kind of a message it is, whether it's an order, and then what level of order, and that's determined by your command level, and then that goes out based on its source, its target, and the classification. If it's highly encrypted, it goes out one route, not it's another. Most of our stuff wouldn't have that issue. However, when you send it, if it doesn't get where it's going, then reroutes are tried, and if there's a delay, the sender's notified pretty quickly. Because if you want troops in the field to go left and they don't know that and they keep going straight, that's a really bad thing. So the reliable messages are important in the military. And their vehicle for that is Outlook. They use Microsoft with bolt-ons, but if you sit down to it and start writing a message, it's in Outlook. And then that once you send the email, that thing gets formatted the way you want to, automatic, just the way we should do the 213 formats. I mean, most of those things go into 213 formats after the fact anyway. That's all I had, really.
That's good. In this day of age, I think we probably still need to know how to do it manually, but it's crazy in this day of age not to get these things automated more in, because the text message is what they're looking for, and it's got to be accurate and it's got to be reasonably fast to them. The old method we had for years and years, the radio form, I can see where we might have to fall back to that, but really WinLink and the automated systems you just referred to there, Mickey, I really think we ought to start beefing that up some more.
What kind of equipment would we use that would survive an IMP event? Computers and radios both are going to be gone.
Well, we're going to hope that doesn't happen, and we're looking for other types of disasters to keep us going.
I will say, I will say one thing too, is that part of the problem is, and I will say that the Public Service Enhancement Working Group out of the Program and Services Committee is working on trying to figure out a way to bolster our NTS capability. And Bud is the chairman of that little subcommittee. It's Bud W2RU, who is the Roanoke division director. And he's an old NTS guy, and that's kind of his one of the things that's near and dear to his heart. And part of the problem also is that, NTS system has gotten split into several almost competing organizations, RRI as well as the ARRL NTS program. And there was another one I think that Bud mentioned in his email today. And so Bud is trying to figure out a way to get these three organizations to work together cohesively and make the get rid of some of these ripples that we're seeing in the traffic handling. So I can tell you that the board is working on it at the subcommittee level through that Public Service Enhancement Working Group. And that's, like I say, Bud's on top of it. If you have suggestions for how to improve NTS, sending an email to Bud, he may kick me for this, but send an email to Bud W2RU at ARRL.org. We'll get it to his attention. And he's a good guy. He's one of the good guys. So
He wears a white hat, does he?
Yeah, he's one of the good guys. But anyway, so Bud's is our board's NTS guru, I think, more than anybody else is. And but Mickey, I heard, they've got a lot of experience in it. But anyway, so that's what I recommend.
Does everybody's state have traffic nets routinely? I know here in North Dakota, we have them twice a day.
I think most of the states have something going, some are more so than others. Ours is certainly not twice a day, but we do have them. The breakup that you referred to a minute ago there, Mike, kind of split a whole gob of things up. Some of the nets that were common and going, and then got broke off to another group, and that got fragmented or some garbage that we just should not get into tonight. But it's got to be somehow made to work again.
Massachusetts has a couple of traffic nets that go on pretty consistently.
Okay.
West Virginia has 4: midday phone net, late phone net, early CW net, and late CW net.
Okay. And they all can handle traffic?
They all do.
Oh, perfect.
If there is any.
Right. Okay.
Florida has 2 phone nets a day and several CW nets a day that meet. They used to have a midday on 40, but they just have the 2 phone nets, 3 phone nets on 75, and several CW nets that meet the different times of the day.
Great.
4th region net doesn't happen anymore, right?
What's that now, Barry?
There's no 4th region net anymore, correct?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you, but all three sections in Florida, and it has been this way for 50 years, when it was two sections, all do unified state nets. In other words, each section does not have its own traffic net. All the Florida sections go together on a unified state net, which I think is a great idea.
And there used to be a fourth region net, but I don't think that happens anymore.
Yeah, I'm not really sure, Barry. I think you may be right. I just can't recall for sure.
But that's a key missing part, too, to get the traffic to the rest of the country.
I know there's a fifth region. They get a liaison on Florida Phone Traffic Net in the morning. I hear them, they call for them every day.
Right.
There used to be 4RN and then the Transcontinental Core, the TCC.
Right.
So you'd relay traffic to 4RN, a rep, a phone 4RN, a CW 4RN would, the rep from a state net would go to 4RN and take the message, and then it'd go to TCC. And the TCC were a group of operators that exchanged across call sign areas, 4 to 5 and 1 to 2. They all met usually on 40 meters at night. And they would exchange transcontinental traffic. So that's the way it used to be. I don't know how it works now, or if it works that way at all.
Well,
I haven't been involved in it.
RN to Eastern area net, the Eastern area net goes to Transcontinental Core.
Okay.
In the case of Puerto Rico, good evening, everybody. This is Oscar. In the case of Puerto Rico, that didn't work well. As they say, there were 2-3 days delays on the messages. What really works that didn't fail, and within hours we were getting response from FEMA and the Department of Defense, was the link actually writing directly into the Red Cross, and at the same time going to the GFO and reporting. And once they trust us that our messages that were correct and they were actually real ones, they accepted it, and they came out with a great report that they were serving properly the needs of hospitals and things like that. And there's a difference for waiting for days to attend the situation than only that you can get an answer back within 1.5 hours, taking generators to hospitals or taking bladders of diesel, of water, medicine to whoever who need it, and that makes a big difference. So we have to go with the technology, and this is the experience that we have with the Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, and that's what the radios with the WinLink and the modems integrated with the 7300 and the 7200 and in HF, they work fantastic because they were transferring those files and big and medium files and big files directly into the desktop or the dispatch of these most needed materials for hospitals and mayors and so on. And that is on the folder, the board director, I think they still have it, the folder where all those messages are standing there, and we save them for future reference. So they are there that you can analyze them.
And when digital works, it works well. And there is a digital part of NTS, but it's very secret.
Well, like everything else, there's no management and there's no QA.
Right.
So
Yep.
how do you know if it works or not? If it not for John originating a bunch of messages, we'd never know.
Right, exactly. That's why I figured we would bring it up to see if anyone else has a functioning or section or suggestions to make traffic handling something more. I mean, it's a niche that ham radio has that no other group in the United States has, as far as I know. And handle messages and relay messages. It goes back to our history of the American Radio Relay League. We used to relay messages. And throughout our whole history, we've been able to relay messages and send messages. It's kind of dying away. And we need, and I know the digital stuff works well. We need to start to use that as more and more of our served agencies become digitally oriented. They're expecting us to go along with them. So it's a concern that we have, or that some other people have. So I figured some of the other people would talk about it.
Well,
I
I
got
think the
something,
reason the league hasn't picked this up is that, the obvious answer, for HF is WinLink. And WinLink has been a hot potato. It continues to be a hot potato for a long time. So we've got to, the band plan that we've come up with is very generous for WinLink frequencies. So, probably, in my opinion, too generous. But we need something to allow wideband HF traffic so that you could sit in an EOC, and if you need to send out 1,000 messages of health and welfare message, Joe's okay, Mr. and Mrs. Baker are okay, whatever, you could do that.
I'm not sure we need to worry about health and welfare messages too much anymore. The Salvation Army, the Red Cross, the Baptists, they all have their own separate health and welfare messaging programs working now. And unless it gets really, really, really bad, we probably won't be handling too much health and welfare messages. But serious tactical messages, yes, we might be handling.
And back to my original point, I believe the national traffic system, as designed today, is too slow and not reliable enough for any kind of tactical messages.
Well, if all of the nets are manned, it wouldn't be too slow, but it's not manned enough. We don't have enough people to handle traffic nets, even on the higher levels. And what happened a few years ago wasn't very good, and we lost a lot of very experienced traffic handlers. And we need to make nice with those guys and bring them back to the ARRL.
Well, I don't. Only thing I know what happened with the RRI, whatever that is.
Yeah, Radio Relay International.
Yeah, so that was just a dispute, personality differences. Sort of like a lot of the organizational things we have.
Yes, and we need to fix it so they all come back, because those are all the experienced guys. Almost all of the digital NTS went to them, and left the what we have now is a shell of what it used to be. And if we convince those guys that we're going to be treated okay, they'll probably come back.
Well, what's the reason for the split? There's got to be somebody on here that is involved in that, knows the reason for the split.
Well, that was the reason that Bud Hippisley ran for Roanoke Division Director. So somebody on the board really is aware of all this and is trying to do something about it.
I got a little insight to that. The two mics can certainly comment about that, and Mike Reisbeck certainly knows who I'm going to refer to. But our traffic manager here has been very vocal about the system in place, and the reason why RRI became what it is now is because they feel as though that there was a disassociation with the league, with NTS, and an obvious lack of support for NTS through the league. And that's been something that over 4 or 5 years that she's been really hot on this topic to try to get representation back into the league so that we can get this thing more formally put back together so it would actually work more efficiently and more effectively going forward. And certainly the two mics can comment on that and see what their input is on that.
No, that's absolutely dead on. And Marsha's been wonderful in representing that. Of course, she's one of the best around in that field. It hasn't gotten as much traction as a lot of people wish it had gotten. And I'm at a bit of a loss to explain why. But part of the problem, I think, has been lack of a vocal supporter and a focal point on the staff at headquarters. Now, getting anything to happen in that area right now is going to be difficult, but perhaps after this this most recent disaster passes by.
Well, I can speak a little bit to National Traffic System and RRI. but I think Eastern Pennsylvania might have a better perspective on it. But it's been decades that the MCOM side and NTS side have not worked together. That goes way back. It's historical. However, the cataclysmic event of Cascadia Rising exercise and Joe Ames being dismissed from his position was the start of RRI. He didn't leave. That organization started up after there was a separation between the board and the leadership of the NTS. So my take, in Iowa, we've never been either NTS or RRI. We have an independent board of directors for all of our nets, and we work with anybody, and we have not seen any change since the split between NTS and RRI in handling of traffic. There's been no difference to us. The main difference has been that more people are embracing the 213 as opposed to the radiogram, and that's where most of our split comes from. All right, back to net. That's my 2 cents.
This is Mike, W7V. Can everybody hear me okay? I just
Gotcha.
want to make sure. Okay, because I don't have my own thing up here. I want to read the email that Bud put out today. It was sent in response to an email that Ricky did, and it really Mickey did. It really it says here. It says the problem with using this talks about the exercise. The problem with using this exercise as an evaluation of ARRL's NTS is that only 6 of the 15 ARRL divisions participate wholly or partially in the long haul or intersection levels of the system. That is basically those divisions or portions of divisions whose sections nets operate in sync with Eastern time. In other words, NTS is not responsible for the end-to-end out-of-section long haul paths between Florida and the 10 or 11 divisions that have 1 or more sections operating in sync with Central, Mountain, Pacific, or farther west time zones. In those time zones, corresponding with the now dormant Central and Pacific areas of NTS, NTS's region and area nets and transcontinental core functions have been replaced by Radio Relay International, RRI, liaison nets, a change that occurred beginning in the second half of 2016. RRI leaders themselves freely admit they've been having staffing problems, so I'm not surprised there might be some failures in the test that W4CMH ran. However, that's not to say that the NTS portions of the relay paths are without blame as well. Some years back, members of the Eastern area staff of NTS, region and area net managers, TCC Eastern directors and members at large discussed reliability and accuracy issues within the system, specifically in response to multiple reports of sections where section managers had not appointed STMs or had STMs with no experience or interest in NTS routing methodology, or were providing participants in section and local NTS nets with no training or incorrect training. I'd certainly be interested in geographical distribution of the entire set of target sections, and especially the location of sections that never received their assigned messages. Many times over the years, I and other NTS staff members argued for strong level-specific certification requirements for NTS participants, especially those in the upper level nets of the system. They were unsuccessful. So am I totally surprised by W4CMH's report? Can the problems be fixed? Yes. Without pain? No. And it's signed here, 7-3 Bud W2RU, past chair of the NTS Eastern Area staff. So there's what Bud sent out, and I thought it was very well worded. Back to net.
So it's going to be painful to fix it, but I think we need to fix it. It's going to really take some of us looking really deep into what we really want ham radio to be, and put our own personalities aside to really fix it. Because it's something that's based on our history, and it's something that we can do that no one other organization can do. So it really needs to work. When they need to count on us, we need to be able to say, yes, we can accurately and quickly get a message out to the California EOC if they have something that needs to be done in the state of Florida, and they need to be able to relay back to us a reliable, accurate message, whether it's done by voice, by CW, or by digital. but it has to be able to be made reliable. And that's because it goes to the basis of ham radio and why we exist. I mean, it's the reason why our organization exists, is to relay the messages.
Barry, you're singing to the choir here. I think we almost all agree with you. Mike is saying yeah, we should be writing to this guy. I've already forgotten his call sign, but for input. He sounded like a good source. So I think that's a good. Mike, I'll turn back to you there, and you might give that guy's name and email address again.
Yeah,
so
he's in the front of QST, but it's Bud Hipsley, W2RU. Yeah, I'm sure everybody knows who he is, but he is the NTS guy on the board, and that's his passion. That's one of his passions in amateur radio, and he is working hard to try to bring. You know, he's actually been tasked through the PSEWG, the working group, to try to get and repair the rift that occurred between RRI and the ARRL NTS system. And he's reported in his last couple of reports that, yeah, he's working on it, but there's still a little bit of hurt feelings on the RRI side, as far as I know. So the board is aware. I'll just tell you the board. I won't speak for the board, but I can tell you the board is aware, and they're working the issue.
Hey, can I make another suggestion as far as NTS and ARRL?
Sure.
Yeah, we have an online net searching capability for traffic nets that hasn't been updated in, I don't know, 15 years. It would be, as a resource, it would be handy to have that. Now, of course, it would never completely be always updated, but at least it wouldn't be the non-usable resource that it is now, and would give a little bit of visibility to those nets that are handling traffic. I would say limit it to traffic nets and not just any net that wants to be on there. Now, I know that's probably Steve Ewalt's purview, and he's got his hands full. So I would say that somebody needs to take it on and make that an actual resource. Do you know what I'm talking about on the website?
Well, there is one for all the nets, and we actually use that as part of our band planning process, was to evaluate, for example, on 40 meters, how many nets there were on there. And I've asked, that has not been updated in years. I try to update it twice a year. I was section traffic manager for 3 years, and I tried to update it twice a year. It's not updatable. It's full of nets that don't even exist anymore, and it's not limited to traffic nets. I mean, you can select for traffic nets, but in my opinion, if you're a national traffic system net, you should pass traffic and not just be a local Aries net, which may pass traffic, but it's not their dedicated. I would say make that an actual resource. That would be one of the first things I would want to see changed in terms of national traffic system. If you're looking for a traffic net, you've never passed traffic, you don't know what you're doing, you could go online, you could click on that, and you'd immediately have a contact. And that is how we pass traffic, is by knowing who to pass traffic to.
Yeah, I'll second that. I tried to use that, and it was at least 15 years old, the information. And I tried to update some of the nets, and it's impossible to fix the listing. It's a long process filled with all kinds of other people that need to approve it, and so it's just not updatable.
Correct. That's my experience too, Barry.
Yep.
I might suggest along those same lines that if somebody's going to update that list, given the turf problems we have and such, that traffic net list both the NTS and the other groups that are also passing traffic.
Yeah, there's no selection for that anywhere. Nobody identifies themselves when they're passing traffic as either NTS or RRI. There's no, I don't ever see that anywhere. So it's certainly not on that website.
Yeah, that needs to be, and if everybody's going to hold their feet firm in the ground, not going to move on this thing, we can recognize that and get the people to work together. And a good place to start is having a list like that. This is everybody that's doing traffic.
I have made notes of this, and we'll get that information to Bud, and I will carry it to Bud and the PSEWG.
Thanks, Mike.
Sure.
All right, everybody's being awful quiet. Do we have another topic to go to? Boy, silent bunch. Okay,
I'll
Marty,
chime in.
go ahead.
Marty in Maryland. So I just got off a conference call that started several months ago as I was invited, because of being the section manager in Maryland, to a Red Cross meeting. So Wayne Robinson and a team of folks are putting together a COMEX among Red Cross and any of their amateur radio operators, or should I put it the other way, amateur air operators who are Red Cross members. And this evening it was mentioned that this Red Cross team, sent out a survey monkey and got a lot of responses back, and it's starting to grow into many states. And during the conversation, they said, well, we're going to reach out to ARRL. And I went and looked at the MOU that we have with Red Cross, and it says that that's absolutely possible, and it's encouraged to do so as long as Red Cross works with the league. Basically means make sure you tell them in Newington what's going on. That way, section managers are aware when they get a telephone call from their SEC asking, am I supposed to participate in this Red Cross exercise? Now, last year in May, an exercise was done between headquarters in Newington and Baltimore Red Cross headquarters. It was published in the QST in the May issue. Several states, I think about a dozen, were all given directions to send messages using MT63, directing those messages to headquarters. Headquarters then combined all those messages into a single message and transmitted that to Baltimore, my backyard. And I was there. We received the messages. We had a great showing of the Chesapeake chapter and others, and they were quite impressed with our ability to handle messages over long distances and from many locations to one. I mentioned this to Wayne Robinson, but I don't know if he quite understands that the COMEX has been done, and there's some good information there. He's got a plan A and plan B going on. Plan A being VHF messaging and plan B being HF messaging. So I'm waiting to hear from the league after this Red Cross group contacts them. I have tried to contact the National Red Cross, and they have very little knowledge of any that this activity is going on in one of their chapters, which I've been told in many cases isn't unusual. So for this group here, if you happen to get a call or know anything about it, perhaps we'd like to discuss that or maybe coordinate. Is there thinking that they're going to call the SECs and then get the ARRL teams involved? And I don't have a problem with that. What a great opportunity to work with one of our served agencies. But let's just make sure that I'm I'm somewhere on the 2 line when you send it out. That's all I'm asking. I'll share that with the group. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Any follow-up comment?
Yeah, this is John, K2QY, Eastern New York. We participated in that exercise. It was, I thought it went off very, very well. We had a practice session about a week early to make sure everybody was on board with the MT63. And then our Eastern New York section, we set up at a remote EOC using generator and all that, and wire antenna, NVIS antenna and stuff like that. And we could hear the entire eastern section of the country. Could hear everything from Maine all the way down to Maryland with no problem with the NVIS, and it was all 10/9 copy. So our take on that whole exercise was fabulous. Back to net.
Yeah, comment, Marty.
Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, thanks, John. You're absolutely right. It was an excellent exercise. It was only supposed to be 2 areas, Eastern Massachusetts and Baltimore. In a very short time, it grew to 12 locations. The coordination, I was part of helping with that coordination because I was trying to get my head around who's in charge, where did it start at. But Wayne Robinson, I think he's out of Georgia or Illinois, somewhere, is trying to reinvent the wheel, and there's already been there should be an op plan already in place. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they're doing. But just for our section managers here and those listening, if you happen to hear anything about it, I'm hoping that they're going to contact the league pretty quickly. They have a PIC or public information officer or person who's collecting some details that's going to contact the league. And I'm going to give them a little bit of, I'm going to let that bake for a week or 2, and then I'll reach out to the league and just make a mention to Steve that Red Cross, I think it's 7 states that are trying to coordinate this. So if they want to look at a successful op plan for doing message handling, I agree with you, John. It was well done.
When you say reaching out to the league, who are they trying to contact? What department? What individual?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know if they know who. Look at John smiling. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, because I shared with them some information and they immediately said, well, then you can help us organize this. And I said, look, guys, my day job is FEMA. My night job is section manager. I got no bandwidth to do this. But my suggestion is you loop in the league, because it would be disappointing if the league didn't have any knowledge of this, and with the sensitivity across the country and the voraciousness of the media, if something like this would unfortunately let go and no one knew much about it, it'd be kind of difficult to kind of follow up. I always like to tell my staff, write me the press briefing before you do the job, just in case I get a phone call. Thanks.
One of my concerns, and we talked earlier on a whole different subject regarding this mysterious dark hole where we put information in, nothing comes back. And some of that is because we send information and it's no place to go. I mean, it's our fault as well as anybody if we're not doing that research. Anybody got some suggestions on that? How we find out where to get people involved? Somebody who takes accountability of that information going in like that, rather than just send information in the blind to the league and hoping somebody takes hold and then getting all upset when they don't.
Well, hopefully once Mike's committee gets through with their job, we'll have a point person where all of the different organizations will be able to contact. And then he will be able to let people, other people in the league know what's going on. But right now, there is no real, other than Steve, who is very busy, there is no point person.
I just posted in the chat window, guys, the contact list for the league. And there, under every one of those categories, and there's about 30 of them there, there's a contact for those.
Okay.
Can I give you guys an update on our, while we're on that kind of that subject there, the guy that you'd want to talk to, or gal, whoever, well, I guess there's really no gals that have applied for it, but can we give you guys a little bit of an update on the search for the emergency, director of emergency management for the ARRL? That's something that's been going on for quite a while. We have it down to the final 8 candidates. Mickey is on a team with me to interview one of the candidates. They've divided these little ad hoc committee into different teams that are going to be interviewing the applicants, the elite 8 of applicants in groups of 3, using a video chat program just like this one. So that's process I think is going to start next week, and then that'll get winnowed down. And Mickey, just to let you know, I'm working on the time schedule for our R1. For our team, I finally got Tom Abernathy's time availability. I've got yours and I've got mine, so I'll be able to get that out tomorrow. So
Mike,
anyway, that's what's going on with that.
I've got a quick question for you, and I don't object to the scope of what you're looking at. But when you're looking at those candidates, you were looking at them, from what I read, you were looking at them in terms of the larger sections that had the bigger impact disasters. And how is that played out in your interviews? I don't know where I read that. I read that somewhere, and I'm not saying I object. I'm saying that works for me here in Iowa. I'm okay with that. I'm just curious how that's played out.
That's not really the case. You're not with CNN, by the way, are you? No. Anyway, no. What they did is President Roderick, put that committee together, that subcommittee that was originally a committee to draft the requirements document of what this new position would have to be. It started off being basically a replacement for the guy that was there. I forgot what his name is.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Anyway, the guy that was there before would be basically an admin level job. We said, no, it's going to be a higher level job than that. And after some smattering back and forth, we decided it's going to be a director level job to be able to interface directly with FEMA, directly with the Red Cross, and at high level, even interfacing with people at the level of Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Not just an admin. So we had a lot of issues getting that through our prior CEO. That obstacle has been removed, and now we're forging forward. Now the people that are on the committee themselves were selected from people that are in high impact areas.
High impact areas. That's a good way.
Yeah, it's the makeup of the committee, not the has nothing to do with the candidates. It's the selection of the committee where people that had the highest stakes involved in the MCOM side of it. So I'm on the committee. I live up here in Oregon. We've got Cascadia Rising. We've got FEMA up here in Region 10. Very, very active up here, and a very large areas organization, as Dan can attest to.
Well, I think that's an awesome way. I think that's an awesome approach because it really makes it, like you said, high end. I'm just wondering how that has played out. In your candidates and things like that. I'm just really curious about how that's going to play out in terms of the kind of candidate you're looking for, the kinds of connections.
Well, Mickey, you want to comment on that?
Just a quick comment. Is there anyone on the call who applied for the job? Okay, I think it's fair to ask that. I don't want to get into discussing who the candidates were or anything like that. But we had about 40 applicants. Without interviewing, we have eliminated all but 8, and they're scattered all over the country. There's no one from the Southeast. There are a couple from West Gulf. There's one from New England, one from Roanoke, and basically they're scattered all over the place. The job will have to report to Newington, because the job will be a boss for a couple of people, run an organization, run the ham kits, the ham relief, ham aid kits. So all that's going to be happening in Newington. The people seem to be high quality people, the 8 people we have left. We'll know more when we talk to them. I mean, I haven't talked to them. I think Bud has talked to them in terms of just making sure they are ready to move to Newington, and that to schedule interviews with them. But other than that, I think on paper, they look like 8 good people. So it's going to be hard to make a choice. But, once you get in interviews.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think we're all expecting them to hit the ground running. So just.
That was my question. Like, so after this person is appointed, then there's a certain amount of burn-in time, I guess, if you want to call it that, and then tooling up and get ready to, I'm sure most of that's going to be handled in the vetting process, because it'd be somebody that's familiar with it.
Well,
but we are 2 months from hurricane season, and is it going to happen in the next 2 months?
Well, number one. Go ahead, Mickey.
Anybody on the board will tell you that I've been pinging the board since the meeting in January, going, where are we going with this? And counting down hurricane season.
Thank you.
So, believe me, I live in Palm Beach County, Florida.
Roger, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll say one thing also. We had candidates who applied for the job that were not hams, not licensed hams. None of them made the final cut. The 8 that we have are all licensed hams. Some of them have worked at high levels in FEMA. They have one guy that I saw had 3 pages of certifications through FEMA and through several other organizations. I mean, 3 pages of all the certifications that he's got. I mean, there are definitely high-level candidates that I think will be able to tackle the job. And as Mickey said, it's going to be a tough choice. And by
Yeah,
the
they
way,
have,
Mickey, it was closer to 50 people that applied. It may have even been
Okay.
over that
yeah,
before
they
they
have
were
to
all
be
said and
ham,
done.
so they have to know how to work with whole volunteer
Yeah,
organization.
that's in the interview questions. We're asking questions about what agencies have you worked with? How do you, what's your philosophy about motivating volunteers? How do you convince volunteers to go get training? Those are the kind of questions that we have, because we have lots of volunteers, and a lot of those volunteers don't want to crack a book. They don't want to take a course. They don't want to take a test, and they don't want to be background checked.
Can I just explain here's the structure of the interview, and I've actually got a sheet here that's actually the interview structure. It's a 3-page, actually it's 7 pages long, that each candidate will be given. And I'm going to tell you that the structured interview will include several sections allowing you to conduct a comprehensive assessment of each candidate, including amateur radio experience and accomplishments, focusing on the candidate's experience with amateur radio. Emergency management qualifications interview, exploring candidates' skills and experience for the role, an assessment of their knowledge and interactions with federal, state, and local emergency management organization, general knowledge of NIMS, ICS, NIFOG, OXCOM protocols, forms in use, and general questions regarding their interest in amateur radio in this position. And what they're expecting is going to be about an hour-and-a-half long interviews. It's going to be 10 minutes of an introduction. Amateur radio experience, they expect is going to take about 20 minutes. There's going to be about 10 minutes focusing on NTS and what their relationship with NTS, if they're familiar with NTS, emergency management questions for 20 minutes, for a total of about 75 minutes per candidate. And as Mickey said, there are questions in here. You know, in your opinion, what does the future of our ARRS program look like? Describe your own understanding of the overall ARRS mission. These are people who are going to be already familiar with our ARRS program, and also NTS. How would you envision aligning ARRL's large base of ARRS NTS volunteers with the credentialing requirements of FEMA and our other NGOs? I mean, it just goes on, but it's literally 7 pages of questions for each candidate.
Wow, if they can answer those questions, in my opinion, they're in.
This is the only way that you can differentiate at the top level of people, okay? You ask questions that no one will be able to answer all the questions.
Yeah, see, here's one here. What are your views about the current relationship of the ARRL and the national traffic system and integrating with ARRS? Somebody that's familiar with it will be able to answer that. And by the way, there's scoring for every one of these questions.
Maybe their relationship between ARRL and its members.
Well, that's another part.
I know.
That's another part of it. But I mean, it's a very extensive. It talks about FEMA. It talks about all kinds of other things and general questions. And, you know, what strengths you can bring to the position, what makes you unique. I mean, it's the typical stuff you'd have in an interview. And I want to thank Rhea and 2RJ, who really, it helped us along and gave us the format to start with. But to answer as a long answer to a fairly short question, the interviewing will make sure that that's the right person for the job, that already has familiarity with the ARRL, already has a unique familiarity with ARRS and NTS, and can look at the whole picture and basically hit the ground running right off the bat. That's the goal.
One of the things I'm happy to hear is that active ham is an important characteristic. Another thing that I would recommend, if you haven't already have this in the criteria, would be recommendations from local clubs that they are associated with and that they've worked with. So many of the non-starters have no social contact with any hams, either on the air or in person.
That's one of the interview questions, and several of the people that applied actually have recommendation letters from their ham clubs that they belong to. So I mean, it's going to be an active ham, no doubt about it.
And also that they have experience, maybe several years of experience at least, in the field organization.
Correct.
Yeah, that has to be.
That's another one of the questions: is how much experience do they have being an EC, an AEC, being a traffic handler on the NTS side of it. That's all part of the question pool.
Section manager recommendations or section emergency coordinator recommendations would probably be quite good too.
Okay, we'll get that in there. But anyway, so it's a complicated scoring process, and we're forging forth with it. I said the interview process. I believe Bud's contacting the first of the 8 here in the next couple of days. I gave him the availability. The problem is juggling all the times of the interviewers and the interview and getting them all set to to one time that everybody can make it. Some people like Rhea, work full time and have lots of kids at home that she's trying to homeschool, and it makes it rather difficult. And a couple of the people are practicing attorneys they're real busy. Not all of us are the part of the leisure set. And Mickey, of course, is still employed too. So it's it all takes time, but we're being diligent and trying to get this thing wrapped up as soon as possible. Back to Net.
Well, there's been a few divisions based on Mike Corey, poor guy.
That's a name, Mike Corey. That was the name I was trying to think
yeah,
of. Yeah,
somebody put it in the comments. That's how I got it. But there's been some divisions and based on the Aries Connect and things like that. And it'll be nice. It'll be nice just to have one voice again.
Yes. And by the way, one of the questions has to do with their relationship with and their opinion of the Aries Connect, because don't forget, this new director coming in will wind up owning Aries Connect and its future, for better or worse.
Okay. Any more comments on that? Okay, we got just a few more moments if we're going to try to keep this some kind of a hourly thing. I'm going to bring up 2020 field day. Where do we stand on that as far as the league's concerned?
We just had a discussion about that in the Program and Services Committee, and the decision right now is no change to the rules. Stations that want to be able to operate from home are going to be encouraged to enter as Class E rather than Class D. Class D stations cannot contact other Class D stations for point credit. If you want point credit, you're going to have to figure out a way to operate your station on emergency power, which is what field day is all about. So after a lengthy discussion at the Program and Services Committee Zoom conference last week, the decision was made to not make any rule changes for this year. Hams are adaptable people. In the field, you have to adapt. At home, you're going to have to adapt, and that's where we left it.
What about operating 1E, home station with emergency power?
That's what we're talking about.
Sure.
Okay.
The people that would normally run 1D and the people that are normally would be in large groups, out and doing gigantic field days, are going to be encouraged to go home and do a 1E single op entry. There'll be a lot more 1E stations, I assume, this time than there was before.
They want to grill
I would imagine
burgers, they can go out back and grill burgers.
That's right. But no changes to the rules. And I believe that was in the last one of the press releases that came out here fairly recently. But the Program and Services Committee, we did discuss the possibility of changing the rules for 1 year to allow Class D stations to get point credit. And everybody says, well, no, everybody will run their amplifier and their big Yaggies, and there'll be a handful of contest stations that'll control field day. And it's like, well, so we just go back and make everybody run that want point credit and be able to really participate, run 1E. And I think you're going to see a large number of 1E stations on the air. I know for the WPX contest, the Worked All Prefix CW, or the phone contest a couple of weeks ago, I had a lot of stations that I worked in that contest, and I worked almost 2,000 stations in that contest, and a lot of new hams were on there contest that I've never worked before, and we're not even in the Super Check partial databases, being people that ever participated in a contest before. So this virus thing is bringing people on the air that generally aren't there, and it's I think it's going to, believe it or not, it's probably going to be a positive thing for amateur radio when it's all said and done. So back to you there, Dan.
Okay,
Paul.
go ahead.
I have to go to bed.
What do you mean? What do you mean? It's only 7 o'clock.
It's 10 o'clock here.
Yeah.
So I got to run, guys, but I've been enjoying the meeting. I'll say 7-3. Have a good night. This is AA1SU, Paul in Vermont.
No, it's
Good evening,
6
Paul.
o'clock here.
Yeah, it's only what time is it there, David?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. It's just barely tea time.
Yep.
This is Marty. I have a question about the field day. So I read through the field day rules, and I've had questions in this section about proximity, your 300 meters, all that kind of nonsense. And I was like, well, unless you're all sitting in your mobiles, I don't know how you're going to do that. But all the classes that you would not see this year would be any Class A or B stations. Is that correct?
Well, they'll be small ones as long as they have a couple of people that can separate, then keep the associated distance. I think you'll see quite a few of them. There just probably won't be the gigantic 30A category, with 100 people there. I don't see that happening. I think it'll still be a lot of small groups that are club stations that might just be a couple of guys.
And I think you're going to get a lot of guys that simply put a generator in the backyard and call themselves 1A.
Yeah, as long as they're a club, you can. We've got a DX club here that's got 15 members, and probably one of our guys will wind up using the club call sign, and he'll do just that: throw a dipole up in the backyard and operate, with their barbecue pit.
Yep.
A lot of the logging, this is my last question, a lot of logging programs, I know in a 3FD down here in Maryland, Scott, a lot of these logging programs typically come out with updates. That decision for making it E or whatever that decision is that going to be in time for them to make that change to their software and get that update out?
It has no effect on the rules.
Yeah, read my lips. No new rules. The existing, the 1E was already there.
So they can use the logging program they have with no problem.
That's correct.
Yes.
That was okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the only feedback I've been getting is from contesters saying, but how are we going to run? Well, you're going to have to run from home. You're not going to be able to
using
have
emergency
a
power.
Yep.
And
a contest at the brew.
here is with generators. A lot of the gated communities, the hams that live in them, can't run generators. And if it's not a real serious emergency situation, without getting the neighbors really, really annoyed. So that's going to be the big problem.
Then run battery power.
They can work around that.
Run battery power. Go out and yank the battery out of your wife's car.
Yeah.
And hook it up and run your radio off the battery.
Or leave it in the wife's car and just run the cables out there.
Solar panels.
It's a Prius you can run all weekend.
There you go.
I've run field day 1A with 200 ampere hour marine batteries, running CW and sideband. Never had any problems.
Well, the mantra was hams will adapt. And as hams, it's our job to adapt. And I said, I argued a different direction, but I got voted down, and I'm perfectly happy with that. I think it's absolutely the right decision. Mike, do you have any comment on that?
No, I think that's pretty much correct. I had suggested at one point, as you saw on ODV, that we give some slack to the 1Ds, but this makes perfectly good sense, and I think it's going to work out just fine. I think you're going to find a surprisingly large number of people find emergency power somewhere.
Right.
Marty,
Yeah, like in their pencil.
Transmitters they're going to have at W3AO. I'm opening the pool right now.
What was that? This is Marty.
Yeah, I said I'm opening a pool on how many transmitters W3AO is going to end up with. Can I put you in for number 20?
Well, Frank over there with W3LPL, I heard him on the air like about a month ago, and I'm thinking to myself, if you've never been to one of his open houses, He's got a basement with about 12 station locations in it, and he's got all those big 300-foot, 200-foot, whatever they are, big station. And I'm thinking, well, there won't be any of those great hot hamburgers and hot dogs and food going on there, so I'll miss the food. I'm not sure if because he's a tough bird. When you're sitting down at the station, if you're not making one contact every few seconds, he'll tap you on the shoulder, which means, okay, get off the oar, somebody else row.
Well, he's not the only contester that does that.
Oh, I know.
One of the things we will, for those that do field day for the social part of it, they get together with their clubs or whatever, and wives and families and such, and that's great, but that's going to be missing this year by and large. But field day, like everybody's been commenting here, is designed for emergency. And though we've never envisioned emergencies like we have right now, this is a good test. I think it's a good deal of what we're doing.
Well,
let's talk the league. I'm sorry, Mike. Let's talk the league into this. Look, guys, we're doing it for you out here in the field. You go and pull the cord on that generator up there at 1AW and get on the air, so we know you're into this too.
I'm not even sure they're going to be up because they're shut down now at least through May, and they may not be able to even get back in their building. You know, W1AW has been shut down now for a few weeks, but we'll see how it goes. It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be interesting. You know, the 7QP 730 QSO party's coming up here in a few weeks, and so they did make a couple of rule changes. And one of the things that's going to be interesting is people that want to run multi in that are going to have not only just network computers, they're going to have network computers that are across multiple networks. And I don't know how the heck that's going to work. They're going to have VPNs, and it's going to be an IT guy's nightmare. But somebody's going to figure out how to do that and have two guys that run multi that are maybe in different remote that are in different areas. It's going to be real interesting to see how that works out.
Well, I'll just stick my smartphone right next to my rig and put it on Vox. And if anybody wants to call in and start working, my phone will auto answer. It'll be on speaker, and they can just start talking on that.
Hey, Mike, Lee in Iowa again. The only thing missing, I think it's a great plan for field day. The only thing missing is the publicity. So more PR press releases out of ARRL that we can share with our served agencies would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, we'll you know, as you know, as you guys all know, ARRL is basically shut down. Everybody that can is working from home, and those that couldn't aren't working there. So, you know, I don't know what they're working on, but I'm sure they're working on stuff for field day. Everybody in the league, believe me, knows the importance of field day, the importance that it is for the ARRL, the importance it is for the individual clubs. And yeah, it is a huge social thing. And everybody certainly knows its importance. And they have been, I've seen some ads come across my my email promoting it, but I know they are working on the PR side of it. I asked Barry that question a couple of weeks ago, and he said, yeah, they're working on it right now, but everything else is getting slowed down because they're having to work from home and don't have access to the stuff that's in their office. So,
you know, this is really a good opportunity. You think about it, and we got an emergency here that everybody's feeling. You know, it's one thing when the East Coast gets some storms or tornadoes or whatever, or the West Coast does or whatever. Those are isolated areas. We get to read about it and see what the ham's doing there. This is affecting everybody, and I would think we have some opportunities here to show amateur radio in service through this major disaster that everybody's feeling.
Yeah, you're right, Dan.
Hopefully we won't have a hurricane where the 500 people are going to have to move into a shelter early June.
Oh, Mickey, please. No, Mickey.
This is the way I think about things, you know.
I know, Mickey, but I work for FEMA. You know, I don't really want my field day ruined by a hurricane, okay?
Yeah, Craig Fugate is a good buddy of mine. I called him and tried to get him to apply for the MCOM manager. And he said, what, you kidding? I said, no, I'm not kidding. I'm not moving to Massachusetts or Connecticut.
Well, gentlemen, have we, anybody got any more things on this subject?
Yeah, I'd like to say that I'm looking forward to actually being able to operate in field day again. Since I became section manager, I put on 600 or 700 miles every year visiting the various clubs in the section. So this way I'm going to get on the air and do some CW.
There you go.
I'll work you.
I will hope for it.
Yep, same. I'll be looking for you.
Yeah, you're going to have a bunch of us doing that.
And
Okay.
just a little reminder, the North Dakota QSO party is this weekend.
Oh, okay, good.
All two stations?
All two stations are going to be there.
Georgia is this weekend too, so got to plug Georgia too.
And
And
then
QRP RCI is tomorrow night.
Florida's in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Okay, I have a different subject here. We tried something new this time. We did a no agenda, and we brought a bunch of other agendas here. Also, it's been recommended that we not only include the directors, but include the vice directors on this. I need some feedback. Where are we going with this? We're reinventing the wheels, so I need some feedback. How are we doing on this?
I'd like to see the vice directors come. I mean, give them something to do.
Not every meeting.
I've got a very active vice director, probably the most active vice director out of all of them.
He's only saying that because of Mark's on here.
Well, yeah, of course.
I'd like to see section manager meeting.
Hey, Mike, I'll send you your $10 here tomorrow.
Jim Stillington sent out a great newsletter, and in it he has 2 pages of like how to determine screw size. He's a mechanical engineer, and so he's got all these really mechanical engineering who cared type things on the back of it. I think I've got
Dan.
Somebody was trying to say something about wanting to see section managers, and they got cut off.
I was gonna. This is Marty again. What I was gonna suggest, Dan, is I think it would be really nice to be able to have the section managers meet and then have it with the SECs, because I think that was very valuable. And then if you're going to have directors, vice directors. I enjoy sitting with my colleagues here as section managers. We're all feeling the same pain, and not necessarily just sitting all day, but to be able to share with my colleagues at a section manager level, and then with our SECs, and then with our directors. And if you could just somehow make that happen, that would be great. That's just my recommendation.
Hey, Marty, I'd like to add to that. The STMs can be quite valuable along with the SECs.
I agree. Yes, wherever they fit in properly. Yeah, I agree with you. But I would like to have at least just you folks right here, the section managers and those that are dealing with section problems, to listen to my woes and give me recommendations to make me a better section manager. But there's sometimes the vice directors. It's great to have them on board.
Well, maybe we're talking 2 kinds of meetings here. One of the things is when areas is a big, tough subject. It is so many broken areas in it. And so what I did, after we beat up the insurance thing and found that there were some serious problems there that still are not resolved, I decided to put that on hold until we get a new manager, areas manager involved, and then go back at that again. We in the field need to look at what we got to do to make it right, and there's more than one way to be right. But I didn't see a reason to keep beating that drum until we got somebody at the league that was going to take that position. So and then there was this big squawk about having the directors on our reflector. So I got them off of there. I mean, the everything only SM's on there. Now then, back to the SECs. I want them on board. We may need to have 2 separate meetings here, so that we can work out our what we need to work out as SMs, and then pull in another one that will include all the directors who want to be a part of it, the assistant, the vice directors, and all that. That might make more sense. Feedback, please.
Dan, why don't you just mix it up based on what you get across your desk?
Say that again.
Just mix it up, have 1 week just do SMs and another week do SMs and directors, and based on what you may get across your desk and how you set up your meetings, customize it to the crowd that involved.
I second that.
That sounds like a good idea.
Okay.
Let the agenda drive who you invite.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, good idea.
Well, that's what we've done so far. We've had some deals where we just wanted SMs, and so we just had SMs, and I noted that in the invitation. only SMs will be involved with this, or directors be involved with this, and so forth, so that everybody knew in advance. My concern right now is that once we get going on ARRLs, that's going to be a driving thing. We'll get all the SECs involved, SMs involved and such. It's going to be almost a weekly thing just to work it through all that. But when we get there, we can address that. But first off, we have to get a manager involved at the league, see what he wants to do, see how we can interface with that, and then go about doing this in a logical, sane manner so we don't drive that poor guy nuts.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody's got any suggestions or comments or whatever, send them to me direct. I get a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, and they're a lot easier than trying to weed through the ones that's on the reflector. So send them to me direct, and if you want a discussion on it, so put them on the reflector, and we can all have a discussion on it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, is there anything else?
Dan, it's John again, K2QY at Eastern New York. Just wanted to remind everybody, if they hadn't seen it on the reflector, that I had posted a short story on eny.arrl.org on the drive-through testing in Warren and Washington County. There's several pictures. There's a short video that Mickey, who is actually my youth coordinator for our section, N2, K2MC, N2MC. So it's a good little video, quick little short story. Take a look at what the guys did. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, and I'll fill in any details. And that's it. Back to Nat.
Okay, yeah, I had sent out a copy of that video I think you're referring to all the SMs and the directors as well.
Got it.
And there's been some activity of comments on the reflector. What that to me represents is a club getting creative. They had enough VEs, they had an idea, and they made it work. I think we're going to see more of that. But yeah, get a hold of John. He wants more details on that. Most of you have seen the video. Anything else?
I got to run, guys. Have a great, thanks a lot for inviting me, Dan. I really appreciate it. And thanks for all the great feedback and all the great suggestions. Everybody have a good night, 7-3.
Good night, Marty.
73's Marty.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Yeah, 73's all.
I suggest we adjourn.
Okay, I'll second that. 73's everyone.
And if Mark, looks like Mark dropped off. Oh, Mark, if you're still there, hang on a second. I got a question for you.
You must mean the other Mark.
Now, Mark Tharp, my vice director, who I think is also on the program or the PSEWG committee.
Yes.
You are. So did you listen to the part about the NTS, the net list that we're talking about?
No.
Oh, crap. yeah, you did, I'm sure. Okay, Mark's the guy. Don't send anything to Bud. Send it all to kb7htx@awrl.org.
Yes, and that's okay. You can do that. I can field that stuff.
Well, you heard what it was about? That was about trying to make sure we can have an updated net list, and maybe a separate net list for just traffic nets.
Yeah, no, and
website.
That's a good idea. That's something we can work on.
So can you run with that and bring that to the committee?
Yeah.
My job is done. See that? Good
We
night,
can have
everybody.
add
We
a
can have
field
a-
to the existing list
Number
with,
3.
as a checkbox for NTS net or not.
We could have a follow-up on this at another meeting and see where it goes and how it's doing, and make sure that Mark's on here.
Yeah, Mark's on the committee, so I seem to remember that in the back of my brain. So that's good if he was on there and he heard it. So he can. We'll let him run with it.
Well, like I said in the beginning, I'm cooking dinner, so I'm still involved in that here. So
You multitask.
Mark, I'm going to send out a link to you of a video of this meeting, so you can fast forward to that until you get to that spot, and then take careful notes. How's that, Mark?
Oh no, I got it. I made some notes. it was gonna go to Bud, and that's cool because he's chair, but I can feel. So it's no big deal.
All right.
All right, sounds good, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Have a good evening.
73. Thanks,
Good night,
everyone.
everybody.
73,
Good night.
everybody.